Hey guys, this is Ryan. I'm here with the drippy Reverb Shootout that I promised on, I think, the last episode. We were talking about how I picked up the Surf Rider 3 from SolidGoldFX, and also I've got the Surfy Bear Bi-Fet Reverb here that we talked about in previous episodes. Those are new reverbs in my collection, and so this is going to be part 2 of my Reverb Shootout. I've still got the Topanga and the Fender FRV-1 here. Since the first one, we had the, what did we have? We had the TC Electronic Hall of Fame, and we had the Digitech Polera that we did on the last Reverb Shootout. Those are gone, so oh well, they're not going to be included. But I think these 4 reverbs I have here are tackling the drippy side of things a little bit better. The FRV-1 and the Topanga are still favorites of mine, so we'll see how the other 2 stack up. Like always, I'm playing into a Princeton Reverb reissue. I've got a SM57 and an SM58 on it at various positions. I'm going to be running into my favorite DoD preamp 250 little yellow box guy here. For just a little bit of light drive to push the reverbs a little bit. I'm a big fan of the DoD 250. I'm using my Hallmark Swept-Wing. It is gold sparkle because you know me, I just got to have that gold. Anything else I need to say? Well, let's try the dry tone here. So that's just the 250 and the Princeton, and of course the Hallmark. Here is the Boss FRV-1 at a setting that I think is pretty usable. So good drip on the FRV-1, pretty decent trail. The complaint people have about these is that they are pretty, they can be pretty shrill. You get a lot of highs bouncing around when you're really laying into this thing. But that's kind of a characteristic of what it's trying to copy, which is a Fender tube reverb unit. So that doesn't really bother me too much. I like to have as much drip as I can get, and I really like the drip that comes off of this thing. Let me, I'll dime the settings here. You can hear even more of the drip. That's with the mixer and the dwell dimed. I've got the tone rolled back a little bit. I'll put that all the way up. You can see how bright this thing gets. It gets pretty darn bright. All right, let's move on to the Topanga. And this it's got a drip to it, but it's a more subdued kind of drip. What I like about the Topanga is that it really lets your drive signal through. And for my surf band, we're pretty non-traditional, so I like to have the drive come through pretty good. So I tend to keep this on my surf rock board. I'll turn up the gain and you can see what I'm talking about. Gotta get the level just right. So that's the Topanga. You can hear the drive coming through, and I'll go back to the FRV-1, the Boss, to show you how it kind of kills the drive a little bit. Dial back the settings a little bit. You can hear that it takes the grit off the drive compared to the Topanga, which isn't a bad thing if that's, you know, what you're trying to go for. If you don't want to have the high-end grit come through, then the FRV-1 is going to kind of pull that back for you and give you more of a, you know, a reverbed drive sound. I like the Topanga though because it does give you the drip and lets the drive through. It's just not my favorite drip in the world. So it's a little bit of a compromise for me. Here it is again. I'm going to bring down the gain to more normal. And let's try the Surfy Bear here. The Surfy Bear is a really interesting setup. It is a circuit reproduction of the Boss Reverb unit, the tube reverb unit, that is a standard of surf bands and anyone who wants to have a that drippy reverb sound. But those things, you know, they cost like $600 for the reissues, you know, thousands of dollars for the real thing, for the original issues, obviously. So this is interesting because it replaces all the tubes in that circuit with Bi-Fets. And then you still plug it in to an actual spring reverb tank. So you can crash this thing. Let me get this thing running here. I just tapped it. You can do the whole wipeout crash at the beginning of the song with this thing, which is pretty neat. It's obviously more bulky than one of these pedals, but it's less bulky than the full reverb unit. There are people who build these things into their own cases and do all kinds of fun, fancy stuff with it. They're great modding platforms. People will, you know, hack their own switches in and lights and different settings and stuff like that. It's a pretty fun project that people get into. So I've got these chrome knobs on here, so it's hard for me to know exactly where the settings are, but I'm going to try to dial this in pretty similar to the other pedals. Let's see what it sounds like. Let's get a little bit more dwell and more mix in there. It's really interesting. It's kind of darker. Let me bring up the tone a little bit brighter. So yeah, it's got like a darker tonality to it. Even when I bring up the brightness on the tone, it definitely has a very natural drip. I'm not sure I'm in love with the trail on it though. So that's the interesting thing with it. I have gigged with this thing once, and there was some kind of grand loop issue with the amp I was using with it. I don't know if it's the Surfy Bear itself or if it was the amp. I'm not hearing a lot of that right now. There is a little bit of buzzing going on, but I think that's just my environment. Basically, I'm using single coils. I mean, yeah, turning down my guitar kills that buzzing. So I don't know. I'm not getting the same grand loop that I was getting at the venue I was at. I think this thing sounds really great. I don't think it's the sound that I want to use live with my band just because it doesn't seem to pop as much. But I'm really excited to have this thing and to use it for recordings and to do other stuff with. I'm probably going to come up with some kind of fancy case for it. Right now the tank is just out on its own, and I've got this little Hammond box that I put the guts into with the knobs. So it's very basic. Another note with this thing is it gets hot. Like, I'm touching the back of this thing and it's very uncomfortable with how hot it is. I feel like I could toast a piece of bread on the back of it. That's because it's blasting a lot of current against that Bi-Fet, I guess, to simulate the tube. I have used tube reverb units, and this sounds very close to me. I would have to A/B it directly with another tube reverb unit to really pick out any sort of differences. But it definitely has that sound. But people get really picky with those things and do all kinds of modifications to get the reverb sounding exactly the way they like. So this is kind of a fun thing to have around to kind of experience that tinkering and, you know, try to find, you know, that unique sort of reverb that's bouncing around in my head that I just can't ever seem to get. I'm chasing that drippy dragon, you know? But something about that just sounds real. That's like the real reverb sound right there. Yeah, it sounds really great. I want to use it live. I don't know. I'll probably be still messing with this thing. Who knows? You'll hear me talk about it more in the future. And then finally, I've got the Surf Rider 3 from SolidGoldFX. This thing is really neat. I'm going to say that right off the bat. It's got a lot of options. It's got this 3-way toggle here. From what I understand, it controls some aspect of the trail, basically. The middle section is no filtering on that. The top is some kind of setting or filter that is predetermined. And then the bottom is something that you can adjust within the pedal with mini pots, apparently. I haven't messed with it at all. I like the middle setting. It has level, depth, decay, and tone controls. The decay control is really interesting. I kind of wish I had a decay control on the FRV-1. That would make that pedal almost perfect for me, because it basically, it kills the length of the trail, so you could have a really long trail, or you could have no trail at all and just have the initial bump off the reverb. There's a boost switch on here too, which from what I understand, it just really boosts the depth and the level. So it gives you just a lot more reverb. So it's kind of neat to have a reverb pedal that has two settings. There's also one more option on here. There's an expression pedal jack, which allows you to ramp up the depth. So if you are playing and you want to blend your reverb in and out, that's a really great option. I've played around with it here at home, and it was a lot of fun. I haven't used it at a gig yet. So I'm going to play this a little bit, and then I'll talk about the qualities of the reverb itself. And this is with the boost mode on to get kind of that maximum reverb, and the res switch set to the middle. Bring down the decay to show you that. I'm going to bring it down halfway. It was at maximum. I'll bring it all the way down. You can see how quickly it kills the reverb. Here it is at maximum again. I don't think this is a very surfy reverb. It has something close to a drip, but it's not a drip. It's like a slapback echo. Let me show that to you. Maybe I'll bring down the decay a little bit here. You can hear how it's more of, it's not a drip. A drip is like this wet, like whoop. This is more like a click. It's like a slapback echo. I don't know how else to describe it. It's an interesting sound. It's more of like a rockabilly sound to me. I wouldn't use this for my surf rock band live. I might use it for certain things on recordings, but yeah, it's just not going to find a place on my surfboard because it's not a true drip. But I have a lot of other really good things to say about this pedal. I really like the trail on this pedal. And when you're playing wide open, like the drip happens when you do palm muting. So if you don't do a lot of palm muting, this pedal sounds great. If you're looking for that palm muted drip, this isn't the one. But this thing is like an ambient machine. I really like the trail on it. I really like what it does to your guitar tone. It just makes you sound really nice. Here, I'll just noodle around with it a little bit. It sounds great. It's a beautiful sounding pedal. I'm really impressed with it. Like I said, it's just not a surf rock reverb to me. I don't know if I'm going to keep this around. It sounds really great. I just don't know if I have a use for it. It looks really great too. Sparkle blue. Can't argue with that. Yeah. It just doesn't drip. That's the only thing. Let me dime the tone and the depth here and see what the maximum drip here is. And the decay I'm going to leave kind of like at 70%. It sounds beautiful. I can't accept what it's doing as a drip, basically. So if you're looking for kind of an ambient, spacey, moody kind of long trail reverb, I think this is a really good option. If you're looking for that wet drip, you got to look elsewhere. This isn't it. If anyone who's listening to this who's a pedal builder and you think you've got a pedal that's got that perfect drip, go ahead and email us, track us down on the Facebook group or online or on YouTube, whatever. Message us any way you find us, and line up to send us one, and I'll do another Reverb Shootout with whatever you have. I think I'm always going to be on this search for the perfect drip in a pedal, basically. And there's some really great options these days. Still very happy with the FRV-1 and the Topanga, but I'm always going to be looking. You know how it is. You always got to scratch that itch. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope you enjoyed this little mini episode. Tune in on Monday. We're going to be doing a shootout in between a bunch of genre pedals. I've got I've got the LA Metal from Ibanez. I've got a grunge pedal from DOD. I've got the heavy metal pedal from Boss. And I think there was one other. I can't remember which. Yeah, tune in on Monday. You'll hear. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about some other neat stuff too. Thanks for listening, guys. See you later.